Hey there folks, Aldershot here, and today we're going to do an impression on Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. It's developed by Capcom and is on sale on Steam at the regular price around $30 USD. Now, Dragon's Dogma originally was released on consoles way back in 2012, but only recently saw a PC port, so it's still pretty new and fresh to a lot of people like me. So in this video, we'll obviously take a look at the game itself, but we'll also talk a little bit about the ports and its quality as well. So let's just jump into the game. Why not? Main menu. Now, my first critique starts before even jumping into the game. There is only one save slot, which is really unfortunate. In my case, I ended up really liking the class I initially picked, which, by the way, there are three, Fighter, Mage, and Rogue, or Thief, or whatever. I picked Fighter and ended up really liking that class, but I still wanted to experiment with the other classes, just to see what I'm missing out on. But I couldn't do that. I found out if I did do that, if I started a new game with a new class, I would save over my current progress, which I was not willing to do. This is especially an issue for people who are playing from the same account but with multiple users, right? Because now only one user can have a game. So that's a bit unfortunate. I'm pretty sure it was this way in the original console version as well, but still, it's not really something that I like seeing, obviously. Multiple save slots, please. Come on. But anyways, other than the main game, you have hard mode and speedrun mode as well. I think they're pretty self-explanatory, albeit I haven't really played them either, so I don't really have any experience with them, but they do seem, like I said, self-explanatory. It's just nice that they're there to distract us from the main game, to give us a little bit something to do when we're done with the main game. Extra features is always something that I appreciate from developers. But anyways, let's just jump into a game we already got started. So currently I'm playing a Mystic Knight, which is a class that is branched off from Fighter, in which all the three main classes, they can branch off into multiple classes that you can get later on in the game. In fact, you can play as all the classes eventually, if you choose so. You just have to rank them up again, which is actually kind of nice. I like that. So this is the game. We're in here. So before I even jump into any of the mechanics, I kind of want to talk about the presentation and its graphics. Now I did mention that this is originally a 2012 RPG, and the game definitely shows it as well, you know, like, even though it doesn't look bad, it's not a bad looking game, definitely not. Some of the scenery is still quite, you know, impressive and still quite appealing to the eye, if you will, and you know, the character models look nice enough and all that stuff, especially from a distance. But when you get really close, especially during cutscenes or cinematics, or when you're having conversations with people, you really start seeing its age. You know, you start seeing some of the lower resolution textures, the lower polygons on the models themselves, and all that kind of stuff. And also some of the animations a little bit off, you know, like the facial animations especially. But, you know, it is a 2012 game. But what I'm trying to say is it's not an ugly game. It still looks fine. However, its age definitely does show. So it's something you have to keep in mind when you're jumping into the game. But other than that, it looks great, you know. As far as its design, it's interesting because this is actually a Japanese game, but it's developed for the Western market, if you will. So it's essentially a bunch of Japanese people developing what they think Western people like as far as design and style is concerned. It's interesting. It's very classic RPG, you know? This is very Lord of the Rings. This is very traditional RPG. You'll be fighting griffins and hydras and dragons and giants and ogres. It's extremely, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Cliche RPG. That's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, I kind of like it. Really don't mind cliche RPG. And Dragon's Dogma is essentially cliche RPG, right? But anyways, let's jump into some of the combat, which is definitely, without a doubt, this game's main attraction. I love the combat in this game. Actually, It's kind of a combination of Dark Souls and maybe Dragon, or not Dragon, but Monster Hunter. Albeit I haven't really played Monster Hunter, I've only seen a few videos on it, but that's what it kind of reminds me of. But anyways, we're going to fight some of these bandits here. Now, just because they're bandits doesn't mean they're not going to give us any problems. I am actually currently in an area that is higher level than I am, so these guys are going to be a lot more troublesome than otherwise. So anyways, let's fight these guys. We're going to try to lure them into this tight, narrow area to give us a little bit of a tactical advantage. You're not going to want to just hack and slash. You're going to want to play strategically. You're going to want to utilize your group makeup and utilize the environments if possible, right? This is definitely not an RPG where you can just hack and slash your way through. There's definitely going to be some strategy in play here. It's similar to, say, other action RPGs that's a little bit more skill-oriented, such as Dark Souls, right? Anyways, we're going to lure them into this room here. Get away from the friggin' archers, because they're giving us a lot of trouble. We're a Mystic Knight, so we're playing really, really defensively. We have perfect blocks available to us, which we'll definitely utilize. So, if you don't know, perfect blocks is when you block at the perfect timing, right? As they strike. And that'll knock the enemy back. And looks like one of our teammates fell, which is not good. But as long as our main character is okay, we can pick him up, which is good, of course. And if you can't tell already, the other group members are entirely AI driven, while the main character is player driven, right? So it is going to be one of those kind of games. And you can recruit your own teammates, but we'll talk more about that down the road. Let's focus on surviving this combat scenario first and foremost. So I think we've taken care of most of the melee. We just have to take care of these range guys, which are incredibly problematic. Because, yeah, they do a lot of damage from range and on melee, so that's annoying. And they have a positional advantage to me, so we're going to just try and run away from those guys because we can't actually reach them. Try to get some cover here, and hopefully our mage will start healing us with some spells here. Grab some of that. Now, combat, as far as melee combat is concerned, I haven't really played much of the magic side, but as far as melee is concerned, there's no like limited resources. You can use all your skills that you learned, unlimited amount of times as you like. However, there is a stamina gauge just below your health gauge. And if you drain that all the way, you will be stunned for a good few seconds. You will want to avoid being drained of your stamina. For example, if I use my thrust attack, that'll drain some stamina. If I use my uppercut attack, that'll drain some stamina. Blocking will drain some stamina. And holding the block will stop the stamina from recovering. So keep that in mind. However, interestingly enough, regular attacks will not drain stamina, and your stamina will continue to refill while swinging your weapon. So basically incentivizing just regular attacks over special attacks when the time comes. So the combat, as you can see, very action-packed. Very, you know, there's definitely going to be a lot of twitch action going on. It's going to test your reflexes as well as your ability to plan. Because, again, this is an RPG, and you can set up your own skills and build your character as you like, as you would expect from these kind of RPGs. But anyways, what was I trying to do? Right. Trying to heal up a little bit. We'll use a pot here. Just like that. So I'll quickly go over some of my skills here. You can hold the... I'm using a controller right now. You hold the R button, the right bumper. That'll bring up my melee skills. I got this little fancy thing here that drags in small enemies into one place. It's basically a gravity well. I also have Burst Strike, which is my thrust attack. And I also have this great little uppercut move, which stuns enemies as well. All that takes stamina, of course. Then I also have my shield skills. I have Holy Fortress, which enhances my blocking with Holy Energy, applying more knockback and all that kind of stuff. I also have Fire Counter, which I don't actually use a lot. I'm waiting for a new skill to replace it. It's kind of like the Holy one, except it reflects fire damage. I also have Fire Enchanter, which enchants my weapon with a little bit of fire damage. It actually enchants all my allies' weapons that's around my vicinity, right? So yeah, that's essentially my skills. And again, each skill will take up stamina, so do use them strategically. Now, fighting the little dudes, they're fun and all. And the combat mechanics and the combat system itself is definitely the creme de la creme of this game. It's really fun. It's the main reason I keep coming back to it. But I'll show you the part of the combat that made me just fall in love with Dragon's Dogma. If you can't tell, I do like the game. It is these fights when you were fighting giant monsters like this golem here. Now, what makes it interesting isn't that they're just big and we're whacking at them. No, no, no. There's actually a grab button. Oh god, he just stomped on me. There's actually a grab button, and you can climb them, kind of like the way you do in Shadow of the Colossus. And this guy features weak points. Not all of the big dudes features weak points. This guy has a very obvious one, but you have to climb it, whack at the weak points a few times, knock him down, and then start laying waste, essentially, just like that. Let's jump off of him, just like that, and aim for another weak point. So this is one of the best parts of Dragon's Dogma. It's really, really fun. It's epic as hell. I know I'm using a lot of, like, you know, spin words right now, but it's the best way I can describe it. It's just really fun and really, really epic. It really is. It's so visually stunning, I guess, when you first encounter a giant fight and you're on top of a huge-ass mob swinging at their weak points on top of their heads. You're just like, wow, why haven't other games done this? Well, there has, you know, there's Shadow of the Colossus that's definitely done it before, but Shadow of the Colossus did one thing, and that was jumping on giant monsters and slashing at their weak points, right? This game does a lot of things while doing that, and it pulls off most of the things that it does fairly well, in which we still have a lot to discuss as far as this game's concerned, as far as other things that it does. But this is one of the best things about it: fighting these giant mobs, climbing on top of them, and trying to knock their asses down. Alright, we got this guy's asses down. So, alright, we used up all our stamina. We're kind of stunned right now. It's generally not a good idea. Luckily, our teammates is doing their fair share of the labor as far as, you know, doing damage and all that stuff. Now, the ally system itself is really, really interesting. We'll talk more about that when we get an opportunity. Right now, I just kind of want to focus on this mob, because I don't want to die, and I want to kill him, obviously. Let's see, there's a weak point on his nipple, so let's get up there. As you can see, as I'm climbing, it does take up some stamina, so do have to manage your stamina a little bit. Keep an eye on that. Alright, keep whacking that nipple. Let's keep going. And the AI is not too bad either. Your ally AI actually does a pretty good job at combat. And yeah, I've never really encountered too much of an issue with my AI partners. I think the game's done a fairly good job at programming them to be useful. Alright, this guy's almost dead. This golem here. There's only one weak point left on the bottom of his palm. He just needs to get his ass up so we can actually take a whack at it. Come on now, get up. You're done resting. Well, let's buff up while we wait for him to get up. It is a good idea to keep your team makeup fairly balanced as well. Otherwise, you will find yourself in situations where you just can't really do anything, right? I have 2 mages and 1 Mystic Knight and 1 fighter on my team. I don't really have any rogues or thieves. I'm thinking about throwing one in replacement of maybe one of the mages. But I really like having 2 mages. Extra healing, extra, you know, range DPS. Always a good thing. Alright, we're about to take this guy down, hopefully. Bam! That's what I'm talking about. So, yeah. This is one of the reasons why I fell in love with Dragon's Dogma. By the way, that's not the frame skipping. He's actually just moving kind of skippily. I guess it's just the style of the animation. But anyways, that's one of the reasons why I love Dragon's Dogma. The combat. Oh my god, the combat is so good. It's challenging, it's satisfying. There's a lot of skill, a lot of player skill involved, but at the same time maintain that degree of pre-setting up, of micromanaging that RPGs are known for, right? So you do have equipments, obviously, and you can see them right here. And you know, they'll do equipment things. They'll increase your HP, your strength, your magic defense or your strength defense, etc., etc. Right? You got 2 slots for jewelry. This is pretty standard issue as far as equipments in RPGs concerned. And something to note is that every piece of equipment does show up on your character, and some of the equipment models are pretty varied. You know, I haven't really ran into too many repeated models to represent multiple types of equipment, which is also a good thing. So yeah, combat, pretty damn good. I kind of just want to brush over most of the other things and just focus on combat, because honestly, it is the combat that keeps me playing the game. It's definitely not the story. The story is kind of meh, to be honest. I don't really know what's going on, to be honest. I'm just playing the game for loot, for the combat, and just for progressions. Just one of those kind of RPGs where I don't really care about the story that much. It's mainly for the loot grind. It's mainly for the enjoyment of the combat itself and getting myself better for said combat, right? And yeah, I think that's going to be most people's main compliment as far as Dragon's Dogma is concerned, is the combat. I've said combat a whole bunch of times in a row, but I think for a good reason. I really want to highlight the fact that this game has incredibly enjoyable combat mechanics. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun as far as its combat is concerned anyways. So anyways, we encounter some bandits. Let's take care of these guys nice and quickly. Now these guys are definitely higher level than I am, so we do gotta approach them with some care. Block when necessary and all that stuff. Alright, great. Let's pick up some of the loot. Good stuff. Nobody died, hopefully. Oh, we still got one more. Let's pull them in with this gravity well. I actually didn't mean to do that, but we're doing it now. Ah, take a little of this, a little of that. I like this one too. You like jump up and slam down with your heart attack. That's a lot of fun. God, that guy had a lot of armor. I'm definitely approaching an area where it's starting to way out level me. Like, these normal bandits shouldn't take that many whacks to kill. Alright, good stuff here. Alright, anyways, let's get out of this area. I'm gonna die eventually. Let's save, first and foremost. Oh, I can't yet, I'm still in combat. Now, there's a lot of stuff to find in the world as well. A lot of treasures, and a few side quests as well. However, sometimes traversing through the world can get a little bit mundane. So the combat's great, but the game's not perfect. I definitely haven't gotten to the parts of the game that kind of got on my nerves, and there were parts of it. It's not perfect. And we're going to talk about that as soon as I'm able to save. But apparently we're still in combat. Well, let's buff up our shield, why not? Alright, we're out of combat. Let's save. Here we go. Perfect. Okay. So, I've kind of gushed over to combat. Let's talk about some of the other stuff. So, let's go over the world map a little bit. It's huge. This is not a bad thing. It's good that the game is huge. It's good that there's a lot of content for the player to explore. And let me tell you, there definitely is. I haven't even uncovered the majority of the game, and about 18 hours of my gameplay have been just uncovering as much of the game as possible. I haven't even really focused on the quests itself, right? And there's a reason for that, of course, but yeah, it's a pretty big world. Now, here's one thing about the game that I don't really like. Well, I'm a little bit split on this, okay? So, the game doesn't really have quick travel, right? It does and it doesn't. You can quick travel if you use these stones that you can find, these fairy stones. They'll take you to the major towns. However, they are a depletable resource, right? You can only find so many, and if you use them all, tough luck. You're going to have to walk everywhere. And indeed, I have been walking everywhere, right? I've heard from friends that later on in the game that I just haven't come across yet, you can get an infinity fairy stone where I can set up my own teleport points, and I can teleport back and forth from certain specific areas, but not all the areas, right? So it's what I'm trying to say is it's not Skyrim, it's not Fallout where you can just find an area and you can just click on it later on in the game and forever quick travel. No, no, no. You have to traverse all of this land by foot for the majority of your game, right? At least from my current experience. I'm about 17 or anywhere between 17 to 20 hours of real game time that I've played, right? Just to give you an idea of my experience. But yeah, there's a lot of foot traversing, right? And running, although it's nice that we have a sprint to help us traverse, it takes up stamina. You're not going to want to waste your stamina bar by running all the time, because when you run into an encounter, you're going to have to wait for that stamina to recharge, which puts you at a disadvantage. So you can only sprint for basically bursts at a time. You know, I like to run for about 10% of my stamina bar, recover, run again for 10% of my stamina bar, etc., right? So traversing becomes an issue because, well, you'll be doing a lot of it. And from my experience, there hasn't been any form of quick transportation outside of the fairy stones, right? There's no griffins to ride, there's no vehicles to drive, or anything of that sort. You're just running on foot. And trust me, sometimes that can get a little bit annoying. Especially, let's say I'm trying to, well, right now in my game, a lot of my quest has to do with this town here. I have to come over here, right? But I have to traverse all the way from over here, all the way to down here. Now, I'm probably not going to record that entire trip, because that's easily anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes of just walking, or maybe even longer, right? And you'll be doing that a lot. Now, fortunately for us, you know, in between that travels, the game does sprinkle in a lot of combat scenarios and encounters to keep it interesting, and also to help the player progress through leveling up and gaining gold and experience and all that stuff. But regardless of all that stuff, it's still really, really tedious after a while. It definitely has a bit of a grind as far as traversing is concerned. Anyways, we should probably take care of these harpies here. Buff up our block here. There we go. I'll just use a gravity well, so that should help bring some of the enemies down this area. We're kind of a windy area, so we're kind of getting blown away at the same time, which is a bit annoying. But anyways, as I was saying, yeah, traversing is a big issue. I've only traveled this much land so far, which isn't a lot. Oh, okay, one of our guys died, so we got sent back to the town. So instead of traversing all that land that I was complaining about, let's use one of these fairy stones, so we can quickly go over some of the other features of this game. And there is definitely one feature that's really, really interesting about Dragon's Dogma, and that has to do with our allies, or as this game calls them, the pawns. Oh, here's our Eternal Fairy Stone. Yeah, let's go to Grand Soren. Why not?
What meaning do you suppose those stones hold?
It is a port crystal, Master.
Alright, we're all home. So, one thing that's really cool about this game is the ability to recruit your allies. I know that sounds very mundane, right? I mean, can't you recruit allies in other RPGs? Yes, but these ones are a little bit different. This one here, RX Queen, she's my pawn, right? She's the one that's given to me in game I designed her, I made her into whatever class I wanted. She's my eternal helper, right? Now, Olivia is actually my friend's peon that he designed for his game that I was able to summon into my game. In fact, all your allies outside of the one that's given to you, like for instance, mine's RX Queen, all the other allies that you collect, like even this guy, I can recruit him. Hey, buddy, you should join me, enlist. But I'm not going to actually because I don't really want him. But you can see his details. You know, you can see what class he is. He's a fighter. Here's his rankings. You can see his strengths, his stats, you know, his immunities, and his abilities as well. This is a character that someone else created that's in my game currently. And I can get even more by going into the Rift. This is by far one of the most interesting parts of Dragon's Dogma, without a doubt, is the pawn system. The ability to recruit other people's designed characters into your game. That's really, really cool. That's one of the coolest features about the game. Now, something that I kind of maybe a little bit disappointed about this system is that originally I thought it was my main character that was getting exported into other people's games. But it's actually just my pawn. But whatever, it's cool that other people are playing a portion of my game in their game. That itself is really, really neat. So let's take a look at the stone itself. Let's do a search. I can take a look at just my friends' pawns right now. So I got Olivia, which is my friend Frump, Ixia, which is my friend Germ X, and Burton, which is my friend Void Foxes. And they're all viewable in here. And they're even marked as an icon. There's a little, like, little friendly, there's a little two heads icon, two user icon next to them when it's actually my friends, like this one here. I'm not sure you understand what I'm talking about. But it's marked, you know, your friends' avatars or pawns are actually marked on the characters itself, signifying that they are from your friends list. Which is pretty cool, pretty nifty. I can have a part of my friend's game in my game. And you can also look up the top ranked pawn and you can hire them as well. So let's take a look at that. So Lunathix, he's the number 1 right now. Let's summon him and see what he's all about. Now, you know, obviously you're not going to be able to just hire the most, you know, decked out pawn into your game. That'll be a little bit overpowered. That will come at a cost called RC points. And you get those points through playing the game, obviously. So this is the top ranked pawn right now. So as you can see, it costs over 6 million, almost 7 million RC points to hire her. I have 438. I'm not going to be able to hire her anytime soon. But let's just take a look at her details. She's a mage. Very interesting. This is her abilities, all highs and all grands and all this crazy stuff. And she looks pretty cool too, right? But you can't actually hire pawns that are a higher level than you, right? Like my friend Frump had a level 42 pawn. So that was given to me pretty much as a freebie in the Rift, which is great, of course. And it's probably one of the only ways to hire much higher level pawns than you in the Rift, outside of paying for RC, because you can summon even slightly higher level pawns into your game, but it will cost you more RC to higher the level, right? So keep that in mind. But anyways, let's exit the Rift. So that's really interesting. That's one of the coolest parts of the game. You'll find pawns not just in the Rift, but you'll see them walking on the roads. You'll see them littered around town. You can hire them if you see them on the road. You can hire them if you see them in town. All that kind of great stuff, right? So that's one part that I thought was really, really interesting. It's kind of a passive online feature of the game, right? Now, the only negative about this is that when you save, it does come with a little bit more of a loading time because you have to upload your pawn into the game server. But I think it's a small price to pay for something that's so interesting and unique to Dragon's Dogma, right? But outside of the really cool combat that I already showed you, like the big boss fights and even the little guys that you have to strategically plan your game to, and it's satisfying and challenging combat system, and also the really interesting and unique pawn system, the way you can hire your allies. This game is pretty traditional RPG, you know, like I mentioned before, the equipment system is pretty standard issue. You got your torso, your legs, your cloak, yada yada yada. You can buff up your strength, your HP. In fact, even your stat system is fairly run-of-the-mill as far as RPGs are concerned. It's not overly unique. It's stuff that you've already seen in RPGs. I don't think it needs a huge explanation about said systems. I've already mentioned that the classes are fairly basic in the beginning. You have mage, fighter, and rogue. But later on can branch out to more, I guess, advanced classes. Like right now, I've branched out from fighter to mystic knight. So I'm essentially a magical fighter, yada yada yada. But yeah, outside of the combat and the pawn system, oh god, no, I just got put into prison, which really really sucks actually. Oh well. We'll talk a little bit about the prison, I guess, but outside of the combat and the pawn system, is pretty standard issue RPG. Whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, I personally don't mind it. I actually like standard RPGs. It's probably one of the reasons that I grew a epiphany for the game. You know, I definitely really like the game, without a doubt. But if you are sick of run-of-the-mill RPG themes and mechanics, maybe Dragon's Dogma is not for you. Although the combat is really interesting, really well designed, and the ally system is really well designed in my opinion. Anyways, we're in prison, which is a nuisance. You can bribe him for 5,000 gold, which I think we'll do, or we can wait 43 real life minutes to get out, which we don't want to do. Actually, you know what? I have a skeleton key. I wonder if I can get out that way. Oh, I can. Nice. Nice. I never actually tried to get out with a skeleton key before. Interesting. I've never done this before, as in break out of jail, so we'll see how this goes. Ah, brick. But anyways, that's essentially Dragon's Dogma. Very, very good. I found it very, very addictive. The combat is what kept me coming back over and over again. And the ally system is something that incentivized me to keep playing, if that makes any sense. It's really those two things that makes this game so unique and so interesting. It's definitely the pawn system, as in your allies, as well as the combat. You know, given it is AI driven for your allies, but they're not terrible AI. They've definitely been helpful. I haven't seen them do anything too goofy, too stupid, you know. The AI is, for the most part, fairly useful and pretty well put together. But anyways, that's essentially Dragon's Dogma. I'm in prison, so I'm going to end the video here. I do appreciate you guys watching, of course. And if you enjoyed this or found this informative or useful in any way, you know, show me some love, like, share, favorite, and comments. And if you haven't already, subscribe. I'll bring you lots more video games just like this. Thanks for watching, everyone. All the shout out.